Hello, welcome. This is Social Media Networking Content Sharing by Scott May. This will cover Module 5. To start us off, we're going to get into some demographics. It was nice to see that this survey that we'll be talking about covered a nice wide range of sample class with a lot of states. I think the age is an important factor in determining some of this data, where people come from. And then it was nice to see we had a middle or elementary through high school representation there as well. So we're going to look at some data, and what I've done is I've taken the graphs. I picked out the graphs that I felt like had a broad sense or scope, and then tried to add some data that I saw in some of the following graphs to make sure that I could meet a time restraint. So are you currently a member of or have you joined a social networking site? 61% of people belong to social media. And I think that that is a positive thing. It wouldn't surprise me if that was higher today because this was copyrighted in 2009, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think it's just real hard to understand trends and things like that if you're not involved in it. And it's really hard to encourage the positive use of social media if you're not very informed or knowledgeable about it. So hopefully that number is a little bit higher today. And I noticed that 78% of 18 to 34-year-olds use social media according to this survey, and the aging population doesn't as much. But I think as society grows and as we have more digital natives, so to speak, in the world, that number will probably be on the increase. What social medias do you belong to? This has changed over the years, and as you can see, this shows Facebook and MySpace. However, I've heard that on the radio, which everything is true on the radio, that Instagram's on the rise, and which is owned by Facebook, and Facebook's on the decline. So it just kind of shows how things morph and people use things in different ways, and the attractiveness of those different ways to people. I think there's a social and cultural interest that some social media provides that content-specific platforms don't, and that's why you see that there's a little bit of a difference in the content-specific numbers. What do educators see? Do educators see value in social networking? I think we want to learn. I think we're lifelong learners typically in this profession, and so I think that they do. It's kind of disappointing to me to see some of these numbers about connecting with parents, because I think that through social media, you can not only connect with parents, but you can also provide an interaction there that is special, with feedback and things like that. So hopefully that number is higher today too. There are privacy issues, and there are issues with people being overloaded, having restricted access to certain things, and things like that. But I think they're valid, and I think that we'll talk in a little bit about how balance is best in some of those, with some of those issues. Varying use of content. A lot of different uses of content, depending personal, professional, or classroom. And I think the top three there show that there's an interaction with those. Again, like people can comment, or they're made by the people, and then they're also turned around and used for research and information gathering. And so those tend to be the ones that fall in the higher category as far as collaborating, offering feedback, and then gathering information in an interactive way. So in summary, with some of this data, I just noticed that educators are encouraged to use the use of these activities weekly, which shows that there is an importance there. Educators have a desire to learn. From the comments there in the back, there was some broad-based ideas about educators having the desire to learn and recognizing that we should be teaching students and preparing them for the future, and we're not going to slow this train down. I think was good to see. And then just the recognition that personal and professional platforms tend to have a real relationship. And I think that you see a lot of people using Twitter and things like that in order to learn and connect professionally, but yes, also personally. So we'll talk about some other considerations, actions, and thoughts. I did mention that this was 2009. I think some of this data has changed, and as we experience more digital natives and digital natives that are digital natives in a different way than what we traditionally think about that, our kindergartners today are actually experiencing things, different technology and different social media and different issues than what they did 10 years ago. So the appropriate use, integration, and prevention. This applies to students and adults. The First Amendment is important, and I think that just making sure that the mentions of students or staff on personal accounts can be a dangerous one. The law is going to change over time. I think we continue to figure this out both socially and legally, and how those things interact together over time as we're just approached with different technologies that present different issues. And so boundaries are important with students and employees. And as my assistant superintendent always says, of human resources, if you don't want to say or write it on the 6 o'clock news, then I wouldn't say or write it or share it. It's also necessary, it's a necessity to embrace technology and social media in schools because it's engaging to students, it reinforces 21st century skills, and it's also a detriment to some of those skills because we do know that that personal interaction is still an important one in our world, and we need to continue to teach and reinforce that in our schools. There is a need to teach norms and etiquette in the school system relating to technology, and we have to do that through curriculums, reinforcement, and community and parent involvement. And then the policy from the board and the enforcement of the policy for acceptable use is an important one. Is social media worth it? Based on all the trouble that you could have if you just said no social media. Well, I think that it is. And I think that, again, it's a train that we're not going to stop, and social media or social networking. In a timeline of technology and social media, this is a relatively new thing. I mean, it's not like technology is 100 years old. So we have to just continue to pave the way and make good decisions with laws and other types of things like that help us grow and move forward. Society continues to evolve and change, and we have to adapt and understand the pros and the cons. And then social media will continue to evolve. I mean, it's just going to, and to me, the question isn't really, is it worth it, but how do we use it as a tool, and how do we use it to be positive in this world and benefit people rather than be a social downer, really. So those were the sources that we used. I thank you very much for listening. I hope that covered all the information in a short amount of time. I look forward to watching everybody else's videos. Thank you very much.